Uses FaceTime like my dad. Like he's constantly confused. This sucks. You keep cutting in and out. Do you have Wi-Fi?
Yeah. So.
Okay. Press record. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Sharp Stories. Jay's away. This is not actually him beside me. He's in Tofino, so we get a day of nothing but you and I talking. Unfortunately, Jay actually will be here. He's FaceTiming in though. Welcome, Jay.
Good to see you. Glad you guys are holding down the boardroom without me. Let's get into it.
It's tough, but somebody's got to do it. Yes, so what we're talking about today, ladies and gentlemen, is chasing markets down. So we spoke about this a couple of times, and this is one of those awkward, as realtors, we love having the conversation with you, which is, okay, your price has gone up, it's now gone up by X amount, it's now gone up by X amount, you can sell and make this type of profit, and so on and so forth. But there are times where, unfortunately, we have to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And now is one of those times because the market is shifting, correct?
The market, of course, has begun to shift, yes, and this is definitely one of those times when you are looking for an agent who will tell you exactly that, what you need to hear, and not going to be, we're going to sell at a new record price, or you guaranteed multiple offers, or anything along. So that has to.
So with that being said, when the market shifts, and we've briefly spoken about this before, when it shifts, people tend to look at the comparables that they've seen over the past 3 months, which is usually the practice. You'll sit down, hopefully your agent will do a listing presentation with you, and they'll go through the last 3-ish months of sold comparables in order to get to your price. That's all well and good when you're in the same market, but when the market is changing, those comparables become less relevant. And there isn't actually a science of, okay, that means I have to go X amount of dollars below that, or it's in this phase, we have to go X amount of dollars minus this. It doesn't work like that. It's a little bit of trial and error. The problem becomes is when people hold on to that number too much. So if you're looking at comparables and each of those properties sold for 3 million, the market shifted a little bit like it has now, the likelihood is you're not getting 3 million, especially if you're a very similar comparable. So if you throw yourself on the market at 3 million, you're just going to be sitting there building up days on market. In the meantime, the market is shifting downwards, so you're actually, technically you're losing money because the market continues to shift downwards as you sit up here at 3 million. What you really want to do is you want to get in right just below the point where the market is at, and that's where the money is to be made. Otherwise, you're just going to keep shaking it down, because then you go from 3 million to maybe 2.8 million. Well, it was 2.8 million 3 months ago. Now it's 2.7 million, and then you're going to keep chasing, and then it keeps doing that.
Yeah, and the question mark here, which is a question mark, we can try and make as educated opinion as possible based on everything that is being seen. The question mark is, if nothing is sold in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days in a comparable form, what does that 120 days of loss look like? Mm-hmm. Because when the market is softening, of course it's going down, and like Ben said, you need to get under it. So using the comps that were from absolute peak and slightly going below it because you want to sell for a higher number, again, is not going to assist you in getting sold because the market is up. So you really need to assume on the conservative side for a seller, not a buyer, what that gap is from the last sold and how much the market has actually moved down, and be under it. So, and one final note to that, when we're pricing properties, usually there's a range, and usually we can assume in a climbing market that staying at the top of the range is a valid approach. In this case, in this environment, staying at the bottom of the range is now the valid approach to make sure, again, you're under it and your property's looking attractive, not having been left behind price-wise.
Yeah, and if this was a case of just, hey, look, let's go on the market and let's try a higher price, and oh, if we don't get it, it's fine. We can just reduce to what we originally said. No harm, no foul. But it's not quite like that. If you list your property, if we come and do a listing presentation with you and we say, okay, look, given the market comparables, we think you should be at about 2.5. Well, if you say, well, no, the market was doing this 6 months ago, I want to do 2.7, you list at 2.7, and then 60 days later, something else sells very similar to yours at 2.3. Well, now you're an extra 200,000 of where you originally should have been. Now you're an extra 400,000 or 500,000 away from where you are listed now. That's $500,000. Now, even though you can go to like a lower price point in say East Van and have like a $1.5 million home and that range will be less, it's still just as effective. And then that weans all the way down to first-time home buyers as well. If you miss the mark by 50 to 100 grand as a first-time home buyer, that's a difference between one, you possibly getting the home that you want, and two, you being able to sell for anyway. So it's not just a case of, oh, okay, we can try it, and then if it doesn't work, it's fine, because you're actually leaving money on the table. And at the end of the day, you're just costing yourself money in the long run. The comparables are there, and to Jay's point, that difference in the gap between when the comparables were relevant to where we are in today's market, or wherever you happen to find yourself when it comes to selling, there is a price that gets put on that. And there is a little bit of wiggle room and a little bit of play. But again, to Jay's point, it's not about making record-breaking sales this time and always trying higher. So to show how much of a change the market has undertaken in terms of demand and sales and whatnot, I have some numbers for us, Jay. I have some numbers. Okay, I'm going to make you guess first. And I actually thought this is a really good time to do this because we're actually hitting the middle of the year now. It means we've had, obviously since January to now, we've had a peak market and traditionally a quieter market as well, in that it's been spring and then winter and whatnot. So how many houses on the east side do you think have sold in June?
The entire east side?
Mm-hmm. Just houses.
30.
Ooh, good guess. 38.
The entire east side?
The entire east side houses. But what... Well, what's interesting is if you take the entire year, 608 have sold this year, which is an average of 101 a month. So we've gone from 101 a month to 38.
And that is a prime example of there are simply fundamentally less people out there spending money in the markets, putting offers out there and wanting to buy. So another reason why you need to attract the substantially fewer people that are out and about looking, willing to spend the money.
Mm-hmm. And we've already had this discussion before within ourselves. If there's been a price adjustment of 5%, a buyer's going to look at that as a price adjustment of 10% because the market's coming down and it's going to buyer's territory and so on and so forth. So if you're there still trying to get 5% above the market, you're just creating further and further barriers for less and less people to want to cross over. And that's when you just start seeing days on market just building up, and then you start chasing that market down eventually, as we've just spoken about. So there's the variance which needs to be taken into account now. Wes?
On how many listings or houses are on for sale right now, you said?
Don't have that figure on me right now.
If you are buying, again, 6 months ago, and you go into multiple offers and you pay higher than the comps are showing you, you're doing that because you think it's going to be worth more tomorrow anyway, so we can justify that. We're now in the other environment when it's sinking, buyers are going to pay less, assuming it's going to be cheaper next month. And if I don't buy it for this, I'll wait and you'll still be here, and I'm just going to put an offer in lower next month. So take my cheaper offer today. And that's the market, and that makes sense for you to do right now.
Okay, so let's look at the west side.
Yeah.
Obviously, vastly different price points typically. How many do you think sold in June?
20.
20? 40.
Oh wow. There
How many this year? 494. So that's an average of 82 a month.
Still half.
Yeah. Now, okay, that's houses on the east and west side. So looking at downtown apartments and downtown, that's including like West End, Yaletown, et cetera, et cetera. How many do you think sold this year? Apartments only?
This year?
Yeah. No, sorry, this June, this month.
120.
119.
Oh, wow.
That was good. This year, though, 1,469. That's an average of 244 a month.
Still have. So
We're pretty much, and I would assume those numbers in June to change a little bit over the closings over the next couple of days, but we're at a solid 50% based on what the average is. So the demand is significantly shrunk, i.e., to your point, there are less buyers out there even looking to purchase these now. It's not the multiple offer situations in which we were talking about. The market is shifting in the other way. The numbers are showing it. The amount of buyers out there are showing it. It's going the opposite way to stop trying to tangle with yourself with getting new profits. The other thing that I think is important as well is some homes have gone up on average of, 40%. In Pitt Meadows, I think was the highest one, 40% year over year, some detached houses. Now, if we look back traditionally, your home does not go up 40% year over year. So even if you're looking at selling now, year over year, you still could potentially, even with the drop, be up a good 20%. Like a 20% is still a huge amount to be up. And before the year started, if somebody said to you, I wish I was up 20%, you'd be over the moon with that. You'll be up 20% and you can take the profits from that.
So traditionally speaking, you are going to have single-digit increases per year of home growth, which can be expected. And as you were saying, Pitt Meadows was the highest growth year over year last year at 40.
Yeah, 40%.
So it always comes back to, and it sucks to say, and especially because we had such a different direction of conversation just a handful of months ago, that sellers, don't be greedy. If you cut that in half and you still retain a 20% year over year capitalization this year, you're doing exponentially better than the average trend. No, you didn't pick it at the top of the market where you could have capitalized at 40, but you're still in the green. So as things are sinking, we have less buyers, we have more sellers. Everyone knows these statistics. None of this is not public information that the buyer's agents are going to come in with. You need to, it always comes back to not be greedy and take a price that makes sense, but that you're probably not going to like. Again, the exact opposite of, we expected 10,000 over asking and we got 50. So you just have to flip everything and be lucky, as Ben just highlighted, with the amount of people that are actually out there buying, that you're getting an offer and that you're negotiating one through and that you can actually get pre-sold right now.
Yeah, because let's not forget, the market is where it's at right now, and it's not just at a balanced point and it's going to stay here. It's going to get worse. Interest rates are going to continue to go up. Demand is going to continue to slow, meaning there's going to be less buyers out there than what we're talking about even to this point, and there's going to be more supply coming to market as well. And so those differences can be huge, especially when they start adding up as well. I mean, the next 6 months could see quite a significant shift, and if you're looking at 2.5 million today, you could be looking at 2 million at the end of the year. If you're looking at 1.5 million today, you could be looking at 1.2, 1.3 towards the end of the year. These are not small increments of like 10, 15, 20,000. And even I would say in the entry-level markets, we did a listing presentation the other day, and in the last 6 months, the price has dropped by about 100,000 to 75,000. And that was entry level. We're talking like a $600,000-$700,000 apartment here.
So when buyers are coming in, they're seeing that when they're looking at the comps now, and that's the environment they know they're buying in. So they're going to offer cheaper because the market is still moving down. And these are the things, and specifically, and I know it's hard to do, but Your home is now a product on a shelf. Do not get emotionally tied to the offer prices that come in, because you would be doing the exact same thing if you were buying right now. And always remember, if you're buying and selling in the same market, the money's worth the same. So you try and pick tops and pick bottoms and all this sort of stuff, and you're in or out of the market, there's a risk. But if you're buying and selling in the same market, you sell and you're just taking the money, proceeds of sale to go buy, you can then get that leverage as a buyer on the next side. So it's all part and parcel of the same thing. And again, if you sell at $2 million and buy something at $1 million 6 months ago, and you waited, and now you're selling something at 1.8 and buying something at 800, it's the exact same thing. It's just different numbers on paper, but the money value is the same. So that's something I think is always valuable to keep in mind for sure.
Yeah, for sure. If you were buying at the 40% peak, so if you were selling at the 40% peak, you're also buying at the 40% peak. So, you know, pick your poison really. Like if you're selling in a low, you're also buying in a low. So yeah, good point, something that gets overlooked there. I don't want to complicate the topic too much, so I think we should kind of cut it there and leave it. It's pretty pure and simple. Obviously things are changing. Now is not the time to be greedy. Look at those numbers, look at those comparables, be a bit flexible, and to be honest, work with your realtor and have that discussion on what's actually happening. It's still different a little bit from one side of the city versus the other side of the city, so there still needs to be a look into neighborhood, of course. But beyond that, I think we've got the message across.
Yeah, I think it's straightforward. And again, now more than ever, looking at your realtor's strategy on pricing and approaching the market now is more valuable than ever, because you really need to have a tactical approach on how to be able to generate offers. Again, when you're going to market and you know you're going to get multiples, it's a lot different environment and a lot easier to get to the end result, but you really need to work at it now. And that's, again, marketing, exposure, what level of all of that. Have your agents tactically been involved in these types of markets before? All of these things are the questions that need to be discussed in that listing presentation now. Yeah, just more important than ever to try and keep as much money in your pocket as a seller, of course, than in the buyer's pocket right now.
I think that's it. That wraps us up. Thanks for joining us this week, guys, and we'll see you next week.
See you soon.